Welcome to this video about ACEs. My name is Dr. Jessica Taylor, and I'm going to talk to you very quickly about why I don't consider adverse childhood experiences and the theory and practice that surrounds that to be trauma-informed and strength-based. The way that I'm going to do that is by showing you this video that is being used to train professionals, to talk to parents and carers and children professionals in policing, social work, psychologists, youth work, about adverse childhood experiences and how they impact children and also adults. There is a bit of a mix-up going on in our fields of work that means that people believe that adverse childhood experiences and the theories and frameworks around that are trauma-informed and strength-based, and that they're in the best interest of children and adults. I'm one of academics, activists, and practitioners who don't believe that. And we believe that ACEs is actually harmful to children and adults, and that this framework is deficit-based. It's not trauma-informed at all. And in actual fact, it seeks to predict the outcomes of humans based on what somebody else did to them when they were much younger. So I want to show you this video. I'm going to pause it and make some comments on it and things like that as we go through. And feel free to use this video however you like to have critical discussions. One of the things I will say is that the video is quite triggering. It's not something I've created. It's used by the NHS and by Public Health England and Wales and Scotland. And so, it contains a cartoon that follows the journey of a little boy who is subject to several forms of abuse and then grows up. So it's just for me to say to you that, I guess the content is distressing. And it might be hard to watch. So take care of yourself before we start this video. So I'm going to start it now. And it starts quite abruptly. Take breaks if you need. And we're going to talk through what's wrong with this video and how it pathologizes victims of abuse.
My parents don't understand. All the drinking and fighting means I'm scared. I'd like a cuddle, perhaps a bedtime story, but mostly I'd like them to stop shouting at me. And sometimes they hit me. Feeling scared every day and not feeling loved or wanted will change me for the rest of my life. Later, I'll have problems at school, problems with alcohol, and I'll get in trouble with the police. What's happening to me right now means I'm more likely to have serious health problems in middle age and die sooner than I.
Okay, that was a lot of information, so I'm just going to stop there. So he's suggested to the viewer that, because of the things that his dad is doing to his mom, you'll see what I mean as the video goes on, that he's going to have health problems, he's going to die sooner, he's going to have alcohol issues, he's going to have problems with the police. And it's delivered in this sort of, this is what's going to happen to me because I was subjected to neglect and abuse as a child. That's not trauma-informed, that's not strength-based. And so this is really deficit. It's like, look, if as a child you went through this, then you're destined for a life of utter shit. And it's not fair, it's not true, it's not ethical to be suggesting to the public that this is what happens, especially when 1 in 5 British adults report in the British Crime Survey of England and Wales in 2017, 1 in 5 British adults were abused in childhood. It doesn't add up. These stats don't stack up. This is really problematic to present children's lives like this, that they're so changed, so problematic, that they're just going to end up in prison or on drugs, right?
Doctors say my life is full of adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. But in my world, this means I see my dad hitting my mum. Dad's got a drinking problem, and mum's always crying, even with the tablets. I am always being shouted at and hit. After the booze and fags, there's not a lot of money for toys or clothes, or even food. I'm getting used to being scared all the time. Now I'm just angry.
Okay, so glosses over the fact that mum is a victim of abuse. Talks about, mum's always taking a pill, she's always crying. And I know that it's tried to be positioned from the child's perspective, But this is not helpful. This is not a helpful way to talk about male violence and the way that it impacts children who have to witness it. There's also this stereotype that you're about to see now, that this little boy just gets angry and becomes a criminal and is aggressive. And again, it's just so stereotypical. It's so harmful to present children's trauma like this.
The doctors say things are changing inside me. My brain isn't learning how to control my feelings properly. My body...
Bullshit. That's not true. The brain doesn't work like that. That's oversimplified. It's not okay to tell people that when children have been neglected or abused, their brain doesn't know how to control their emotions or anger. That's not true.
My body can't relax like those kids who don't have ACEs, so my body won't be able to repair itself properly when I get older, making it more likely I'll get cancer or heart disease as an adult. It hurts when my parents hit me, but the real damage is hidden, and that damage will be with me for life.
Again, this message that, what this child has been subjected to is horrific, but that it's going to last the rest of their life. They're going to die of cancer. They're going to die earlier. Their body can't repair from illnesses. This is an extremely deficit-based way of looking at children. We shouldn't, in my opinion, as a psychologist, we should not be working in this way with children or with families. So many children have been subjected to this form of abuse, and this is not their life path. This is not what happens, going forward. It's really... It always startles me that people go on about ACEs scores and ACEs without realising that studies show that 51% of social workers were abused in childhood. If that's true and half the workforce were abused in childhood, how did they end up getting degrees and become social workers if they're so damaged and they're all dying of cancer? We've got to start picking this apart. If you think I'm being facetious, you need to look at this video as being facetious. It's oversimplified and it's dumbed down. It's watered down science for the masses to the point where it makes no sense anymore.
I drink and smoke. They say I'm out of control, but I'm not. It's just my way of coping with my ACEs. I've been in plenty of fights, but what's wrong with that? Kids' punches don't hurt half as much as when my dad hits me. I beat up a kid last week at school because he looked at me weird. Who cares? I ended up with more time out of school. Learning's not for me anyway, and the teachers don't care any more than my parents.
So stereotype, stereotype, stereotype. Kid gets in fights, is aggressive, is violent, takes out the abuse on other children, hates education, smokes, drinks, has nothing going for him. This isn't the way we should be working with children or the way we should be talking to the population about trauma. It's stigmatizing and it's extremely classist as well.
I don't like the way anyone looks at me except my girl. She's 16 and pregnant, just like my mum.
This is the bit that shocks me. It goes downhill from here. She's 16 and pregnant, just like my mum was. I have not seen any evidence, whether I agree with it or not, that having some sort of adverse childhood experience makes you more likely to impregnate children. I don't know where that's from, and I don't know why we would even use that as an excuse when grown men choose to rape and abuse children or have technically consensual but not consensual sex with 16 to 18-year-old girls and get them pregnant. That's got nothing to do with their childhood or their background. That is an active choice that perpetrators make to do that and to target children and young girls.
My mum was with me.
So this is where I've ended up. I've got diabetes and cancer's probably on the way. I know these kill you, but I couldn't do without them. I've never had a proper job and I've spent time inside. I hate my kids. I hate their mum too.
So now we are propagating the myth that if you're abused in childhood, you go on to become an abuser, which is really useful. I don't know how this got past anybody at public health. This is awful.
Until she left, so my kids have grown up with ACEs. And now my daughter had her
Whoa. She left because you're an abuser. What, like, why are we lumping this all on mum? It's so weird how women are so erased from this narrative that both his dad and him are actually perpetrators of domestic violence. And it's sort of always lumped on them. Oh, she's left. Oh, she's always crying. Oh, she's always taking drugs. It's so, I don't, yeah, no.
Had her first kid. She's 16. The course of my life was set in the wrong direction a long time ago. I know where I'm heading, and sadly I know where my kids are heading too. This doesn't have to happen. A little help in childhood makes a big difference to where life takes you. When I was a baby, the nurses noticed that my mum wasn't coping and helped her.
Because she was being abused, right?
Helped her and explained how important my childhood is to the rest of my life. So, with a bit of help, she coped. The police came round after next door complained about the noise from Mum and Dad fighting. They asked how I was feeling. I told them I was scared all the time. Mum and Dad got help. The shouting got better and the hitting stopped. I even got some bedtime stories. I still had problems at school.
Whoa. Mum and Dad got help and the hitting just stopped. The man is a perpetrator of domestic violence. This is not true. This is not what would happen. This just glosses over the fact that mum is subjected to violence, and then they're blaming her, like, oh, mum got help, and they noticed that, she was crying all the time and that she wasn't, like, supporting me, and that they needed to explain to her why my childhood was so important. Don't explain it to her, support her, get rid of the perpetrator. The messaging in this is all wrong.
But the teacher asked me about what was happening at home. I got help controlling my feelings. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough. I'm now married with 2 children, and I've got a job, most of the time. I haven't repeated the same problems with my kids. We got help when being a parent got too much. Our children are ACE-free, and that means their kids stand a good chance of growing up ACE-free as well. Almost half the people in England and Wales experienced 1 ACE as a child, and 1 in 10 of us suffered 4 or more ACEs. If we stop ACEs, millions of children would not become smokers or binge drinkers, and levels of violence in adults would be cut in half. Fewer ACEs in childhood also means fewer adults developing diseases like cancer, heart disease and diabetes in middle age.
For those of you that don't know where this connection with cancer, heart disease and diabetes comes from, it's from population level studies that are then being individualized onto victims of abuse. And there are a lot of academics that write about how problematic this is and how just inaccurate and incorrect this is. So it's really hard to watch something that's been oversimplified this much, because they're not causal links the way that they're being suggested to be here. So for those of you that are watching that have, been subjected to significant abuse and trauma in childhood, you do not have a death sentence. And I'm sorry that our government and the NHS and other professionals decided that this was a good idea.
We all need to be ACE aware. Are you? Doctors, police, nurses, teachers, firefighters, and most importantly, parents. The more you know about ACEs, the more you can help stop children growing up with ACEs in their lives. And for those of you who have already suffered ACEs, the more you know, the more you can help yourself and others who have suffered ACEs cope.
Okay, so without going into a massive amount of detail, if you've never seen this and you're thinking, what the bloody hell is this that she's talking about? ACEs is a set of 10 childhood experiences that essentially are argued to cause all of these traumas, right? And then cause all of these adverse impacts on the human body and on your psychology and on your life going forward. The problem is there's 10 of them. And if we were to just get a pen and paper right now and try and think of all of the horrendous things that could happen to you in childhood that would impact your life going forward, there's not 10, is there? Things that are missing include things like bullying, oppression, racism, being subjected to I don't know, war, being displaced, leaving your area, and all of these different things that might have happened to you. So, for example, if you are, I don't know, say you had to flee your country because of things that were going on there, that you were being oppressed, or there was, I don't know, genocide or something like that, and you had to flee, okay? Then you are displaced for a significant amount of time, then you get moved again, then, it's all in the news, you're oppressed, you suffer from racism, you are being subjected to xenophobia, you're going through all of these different things, and then you end up in a school, I don't know, in England, you can't speak the language, you're oppressed even more, you really struggle with your education. Technically, you have 0 ACEs, because none of those things are listed in the framework. It's all sexual abuse, neglect, domestic violence. If a parent has died, a parent has been in prison, that sort of thing. They're very, very specific. And when a framework is so incomplete, it doesn't work. You can't use it like this to predict anything. It's something that Victim Focus completely rejects. We don't support the use of ACEs in any of our work. We need to be trauma-informed. We need to be strength-based. And as this video has shown you, ACEs is not any of those things. There is a better way to work. This is not it. So we can't get sucked into these oversimplified, almost sort of categorical and quantifiable ways of working, like, oh, this person has an ACE score of 3, this person has an ACE score of 2, this person has an ACE score of 9. None of it makes sense. It's not going to work as a public health approach. So please share this video, discuss it, talk about it, but this is not the way to go.